I thought I was marrying peace. She called herself my forever. But everything moved fast, too fast. By the time I figured it out, I'd already lost everything that mattered. And the worst part? She never even looked back. The temple bells are ringing and I'm sitting on this beat-up scooter outside a small beachside shrine, sweating through my linen shirt like a tourist who forgot sunscreen. Mayuri is inside getting dressed for our Buddhist wedding ceremony. We've known each other exactly 31 days. My hands are shaking on the handlebars and I don't know if it's the heat or my nerves. I didn't think I'd be revisiting this memory tonight. But earlier this week, I got an email from a longtime viewer of this channel. He told me he'd been watching quietly for a while, taking in each story without ever commenting, until something in my last video struck him hard enough to finally write. His message wasn't polished, but it was honest. And it brought me right back here, to this exact moment. At first, when I read his email, I felt this sudden stab of recognition, that awful, cold realization that another man had been pulled down the same road I thought only I had walked. Then came sorrow, heavy and almost unbearable, because I could hear the loneliness in his words, the same loneliness that drove me to rush into something I didn't understand. And finally, there was gratitude. Gratitude that he trusted me enough to share his truth, and gratitude that maybe, by telling mine, I can make one man out there feel a little less alone. That's why I pressed record tonight. And before I go any further, I want to say thank you. To you, watching right now. Please, leave me a comment below and let me know where you're tuning in from. I love seeing those messages from all over the world. And for those of you who keep coming back, story after story, this is my super thank you. You're the reason I sit down here, late at night, to tell the truth no matter how much it hurts. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and join the conversation. Because tonight, I'm going to take you into the moment everything began to unravel. Let me take you back to where it all started. Maurice, you ready? Her voice cuts through the humidity like silk. She emerges from the temple in traditional Thai dress, gold threads catching the afternoon sun. She looks like something from a postcard. This is forever, Maurice. I know it. She reaches over and touches my cheek with fingers that smell like jasmine. You trust me, yes? Yeah. The word comes out cracked. I trust you. She smiles and pulls out her phone. I hire photographer, my gift for us, our forever day. The photographer appears like he was waiting in the wings, young Thai guy with expensive equipment. She must have paid him good money, because he's treating this like we're celebrities. What am I doing? This is insane. 31 days ago I was eating frozen dinners alone in Ohio, and now I'm getting married to a woman who makes my heart race just by saying my name. But when she looks at me like that, like I'm the answer to every prayer she ever whispered, I forget about logic. I forget about time. I forget about everything except the way she makes me feel alive again. You sure about this? I ask her as the photographer positions us in front of the temple. Maurice. She takes both my hands in hers. You came to Thailand looking for peace, yes? I am your peace. We are each other's forever. She presses her forehead against mine. No more alone. No more empty house. Just us. The ceremony is quick, mostly in Thai. I understand maybe 10 words, but I understand her eyes. They're looking at me like I'm precious, like I'm worth something. When was the last time anyone looked at me like that? When the monk hands us the blessed thread to tie around our wrists, Mayuri whispers, "Now we are one soul, Maurice. Forever soul." Walking back to the scooter, I feel lighter than I have in years. Maybe this is how real love starts. Fast and scary but honest. Maybe all those dating apps and lonely nights in Ohio were just practice for this moment. For her. Where we go now, wife? I ask her, testing the word on my tongue. She laughs, the sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Home, husband. We go home and I cook for you. I take care of you forever. As we drive through the narrow streets of Phuket, her arms wrapped around my waist, I think maybe I've won some kind of lottery. Not the money kind, the life kind. The kind where a broken-down factory supervisor from Ohio gets a second chance at happiness with a woman who calls him forever. I should have paid attention to how easily that word rolled off her tongue. 6 months before that temple, I was sitting in my empty duplex in Dayton, staring at divorce papers and wondering when my life turned into a country song. 30 years on the line at the Delphi plant, 23 years married to Linda, 2 kids who call me maybe twice a year if I'm lucky. The settlement took half my pension and most of my dignity. Dad, you need to get out there again, my daughter Sarah told me over the phone. Maybe try Match.com or something. Match.com. Like I'm a goddamn commodity to be browsed and discarded. I tried it for 2 weeks. Every conversation felt like a job interview where nobody wanted to hire me. 55, divorced, balding, with a paunch that grew during the pandemic and never left. Not exactly premium dating material. That's when YouTube changed everything. Some guy named Pete from Arizona talking about his retirement in Chiang Mai. Guys, I'm living like a king on $1,500 a month. The people here respect their elders. The women appreciate a good man who treats them right. He showed footage of himself at beach bars, temple visits, local markets where everyone smiled and waved. I watched that video maybe 50 times. Then I found more. Expat channels showing peaceful mornings on tropical beaches, affordable housing, friendly locals. They all said the same thing. Thailand wasn't just cheap, it was welcoming. It was a place where a guy like me could matter again. Linda would have called it a midlife crisis. Maurice, you can't just run away to Asia like some desperate old fool. But Linda wasn't there anymore. Linda was living with her yoga instructor in Columbus, and I was eating microwave dinners while watching other people live the life I wanted. So I bought a one-way ticket to Phuket. Sold everything that mattered, kept everything that fit in 2 suitcases. The plane ride was the longest 14 hours of my life, but when I walked out of that airport into the humid Thai air, something in my chest loosened for the first time in months. I rented a small bungalow near Rawai Beach for 8,000 baht a month, about $250 in American money. The place had a tiny kitchen, a bed that was harder than concrete, and a porch where I could drink my morning coffee while watching fishing boats disappear into the sunrise. It wasn't luxury, but it was mine. That's where I was 3 weeks later, sitting at the local market trying to figure out how to ask for ripe mangoes without looking like a complete tourist, when she appeared, Mayuri, selling fruit from a small stall with a smile that could power the whole market. You want sweet mango, yes? She held up a perfect golden fruit. I picked best one for you. How'd you know I speak English? You have kind face. American face. Not like other Farang who come here. She bagged 3 mangoes and handed them to me. Most foreigners, they just want cheap everything. But you say please and thank you. You have good manners. That sentence hit me harder than it should have. When was the last time someone complimented my manners? When was the last time anyone noticed anything good about me at all? I'm Maurice, I said, probably grinning like an idiot. Mayuri. She pointed to herself. You live here now? In Phuket? Yeah, I'm retired, trying out the simple life. Good choice. She leaned forward conspiratorially. Phuket very peaceful. Good place for good man to find happiness. I started going to her stall every few days. She'd save me the best fruit, we'd chat about the weather, local customs, her family. She had this way of listening that made you feel like every word you said was important. When I told her about my divorce, she touched my arm gently and said, Her loss, Maurice. You're not like the other Farangs, you have good heart. You're not like the other Farangs. Those 7 words rewrote my whole story. In Ohio, I was just another washed-up factory worker. Here, I was different, special, worth noticing. That's how it started. With mangoes and compliments and the intoxicating feeling that maybe, just maybe, I'd found a place where Maurice Dalton mattered. Mayuri moved in after exactly 7 days of what I thought was dating. Looking back, I can see how fast everything happened, but at the time, it felt natural. Like gravity. Maurice, you live alone in big bungalow? She was sitting on my tiny porch, sharing a beer as the sun melted into the Andaman Sea. Very lonely for good man like you. It's not that big, I laughed. 2 rooms and a kitchen the size of a closet. In Thailand, we don't like people to be alone. Family very important, community very important. She moved her chair closer to mine. Maybe I stay tonight? Cook for you? Take care of you proper way? I should have said no, should have slowed things down. But when she looked at me like that, like I was the solution to loneliness itself, I melted. If you want to, I said. She didn't just stay that night. She transformed the place. By morning, my clothes were folded in neat piles, the kitchen smelled like lemongrass and ginger, and there were fresh flowers in a water glass on the table I'd been using to hold beer bottles. You like? She served me tom kha gai in a bowl I didn't know I owned. I make special Thai breakfast for my special man. Special man. I was 55 years old and those two words made me feel like a teenager getting asked to prom. It's incredible. You didn't have to do all this. I want to, Maurice. You make me feel safe, protected, like real woman should feel. She sat across from me, chin in her hands, watching me eat like I was performing magic tricks. My father, he died 2 years ago. Mama, she's sick all the time. I work market, send money home. Very hard life for woman alone. I'm sorry about your father. He good man. Like you. He always say, Mayuri, you find good man who treat you like precious. Not just want you for body or for cleaning house. Good man who see your heart. Tears started forming in her eyes. When I see you at market I think, maybe this is the man Papa send me. Christ. How do you respond to something like that? This beautiful woman telling you her dead father sent you to her like some kind of guardian angel? I reached across and took her hand. I'd like to take care of you, Mayuri, if you'll let me. She squeezed my fingers. You mean that? Yeah, I mean it. That afternoon, while I was napping in the heat, she reorganized my entire life, moved her clothes into my closet, arranged her toiletries next to mine in the bathroom, set up a small shrine with incense and a Buddha statue on the dresser. When I woke up, she was massaging coconut oil into my feet like I was royalty. Feel good? She asked. Amazing. And it was. When was the last time anyone had touched me with kindness? Mayuri, you don't have to do all this. I want to. In Thailand, when woman love man, she take care of him, make him feel like king. She worked her thumbs into the arch of my foot. You take care of me, I take care of you. This is how real love works. That evening, she cooked pad thai that was better than any restaurant, and we sat on the porch watching fishing boats return to harbor. She told me stories about growing up in a small village near Chiang Rai, about helping her grandmother sell vegetables, about dreaming of running her own guest house someday. I want to build something beautiful, Maurice. Place where people come to find peace, good food, clean rooms, family feeling. She rested her head on my shoulder. But need money for land, need business partner who understand Thai way but also Farang way. Sounds like a dream worth chasing. Maybe we chase together? You and me? She looked up at me with those eyes that seemed to see right through to whatever was left of my soul. I never meet man like you, Maurice. Kind man. Honest man. Man who see me as person, not just pretty Thai girl for temporary fun. 3 weeks later, she was crying in our bed at 2 a.m, telling me about her family's debts, about the land her cousin found that would be perfect for our guest house, about how the owner wanted to sell quick but only to Thai citizen. I so scared to ask you, Maurice. You already give me so much. Home, love, feeling of safety. She was shaking. But my cousin, he can buy land in his name, just temporary, until we marry proper and figure out legal way. I never asked man for money before. But with you, I feel like we team, like we building future together. How much money are we talking about? Maybe 1 million baht. For good land near beach. Prime location for guest house. About 30,000 American. A third of what I'd brought to Thailand. But looking at her face, streaked with tears and hope, I couldn't imagine saying no. If this is what you want, then let's do it. She threw her arms around my neck. You trust me? I trust you. I love you so much, Maurice. You're the only man I ever trust with my whole heart. We're going to build something beautiful together. Something that lasts forever. Forever. That word again. The way she said it, like a promise and a prayer rolled into one, I believed every letter. I should have listened to the part of my brain that was screaming slow down. But I was home for the first time in years, and I wasn't about to give that up for the sake of being careful. The money started moving in chunks. 40,000 baht here, 60,000 there. Each transfer came with tears, apologies, and promises that this would be the last time. Maurice, I'm so sorry to ask again. Mayuri was pacing our small kitchen like a caged animal. Lawyers say need more money for land transfer papers. Government very complicated here. How much more? 40,000. I know is lot. I know you already give so much. She stopped pacing and looked at me with eyes that were red from crying. Maybe I stupid girl with stupid dreams. Maybe we just forget about guest house. Hey, I pulled her into my arms. We're partners, remember? If you need 40,000, we'll find 40,000. You sure? I feel terrible asking my man for money. Not proper Thai woman behavior. You're not asking for money. You're investing in our future. She pressed her face against my chest. What I do to deserve man like you? The second transfer happened 3 days later. We were having dinner at a beachside restaurant when her phone started ringing non-stop. Sorry, Maurice. Family emergency. She answered in rapid Thai, her voice getting more upset with each sentence. Finally, she hung up and put her head in her hands. What's wrong? My brother. He in trouble with police. They say he owe money for bike accident. If he not pay, they put him in jail. She was shaking. I so sorry, Maurice. Always something with my family. Always need help. How much trouble is he in? 60,000 baht. For hospital bills and police fine. She looked at me through her fingers. I never ask for my family. But he only family I have left since Papa died. I can't let them put him in jail. I should have asked more questions. Should have wanted to meet this brother, or see some kind of police report, or at least have a conversation about boundaries and expectations. But she was crying so hard she couldn't catch her breath, and all I could think about was making her feel safe again. We'll take care of it. You mean it? Of course I mean it. She threw her arms around me right there in the restaurant. I promise you, Maurice, when our guest house opens, I pay back every baht, with interest. You not just my husband, you my hero. Hero. Jesus. When your ex-wife spent 20 years making you feel like a disappointment, being someone's hero is like mainlining pure validation. The third transfer was for lawyer fees. The fourth was for permits. The fifth was because her cousin needed to pay some kind of tax before he could sign the land papers. Each time, Mayuri would cry, apologize, promise it was the last time, then disappear into the bathroom to call someone in Thai while I moved more money from my American account to her cousin's Thai bank. I keep track of everything, she assured me after the fifth transfer. Every baht you give I write in book. When guesthouse make profit, you get back first plus 10% interest. I trust you. I know you do. That's why I love you so much. She would kiss me then, soft and grateful, like I was saving her from drowning. You're not like other Farang men who come here. They want cheap girl for fun time. You want partner for real life. The transfers became routine. Mayuri would get upset about some emergency or opportunity. I would move money from my account to her cousin's. She would cry with gratitude and promise this was building something beautiful for our future together. I stopped keeping exact track after the first few months. Not because I was being careless, but because keeping track felt like I didn't trust her. And if I didn't trust her, what were we building? I wanted to be the kind of man who believed in his woman, the kind of man who invested in love without calculating the exact return. Looking back, that was exactly what she needed me to think. But at the time, every transfer felt like proof that we were a team, that we were building something bigger than just two lonely people sharing a bed and meals. We were building a future, a business, a life that would matter. Soon, Maurice, she would whisper after each transfer, curled up against me in the darkness. Soon we have beautiful guest house and everything will be perfect. Just you and me and our forever life. Forever. That word was losing its magic, but I was too deep in the dream to notice. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday night in March. Mayuri was getting dressed to go out, which wasn't unusual. She had friends, family obligations, a life beyond our bungalow. What was unusual was how she looked when she was getting ready. Nervous, secretive, like she was preparing for something I wasn't supposed to know about. Where you going tonight? I asked from the bed, watching her apply makeup in the mirror. Just meeting with my cousin. About the land papers. She didn't look at me when she said it. Boring business talk. You wouldn't enjoy. I could come with you, meet this cousin finally. No. He very shy around Farangs. Also we talk in Thai only. You just be bored. She turned around and smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I be back later. Don't wait up. She kissed my forehead like I was her sick grandfather and left me alone with the sound of her scooter disappearing into the night. She didn't come home until 4 a.m. I was lying awake, listening for the sound of her engine, when I heard her tiptoeing through the front door. She slipped into bed thinking I was asleep. How'd the meeting go? I whispered in the dark. She jumped like I'd hit her with a cattle prod. Maurice, you scare me. Why you awake? Couldn't sleep? Everything okay with the land deal? Yes, everything okay. Just take longer than expected. Lots of paperwork to review. Her voice sounded different. Flat, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed on the drive home. Good. I was worried. No need to worry. I tell you I take care of everything. Trust me. Trust me. Those two words that used to make me feel safe were starting to sound like orders. The late nights became a pattern. 2, sometimes 3 times a week, Mayuri would get dressed up and disappear until the early morning hours. Always business meetings. Always with her cousin or her lawyer or some government official who could only meet at night. Always in Thai only, so there was no point in me tagging along. Maurice, you getting suspicious of me? She asked one evening when I suggested we could have a romantic dinner instead of her going to another mysterious meeting. Not suspicious, just missing you. Feels like you're gone a lot lately. This is just temporary. Until we get all the papers signed for the guest house, then everything will be normal. She sat on the edge of the bed and took my hands. You understand, right? I doing this for us. For our future. I understand. But I didn't understand. I understood less and less every day. Like why she'd started keeping her phone face down during dinner, or why she'd suddenly become protective of her Thai conversations, switching to English whenever I walked into the room, or why she seemed distant even when she was physically right next to me. The worst part was how she'd started treating our conversations like business transactions. Quick updates about land deals and lawyer meetings, but no more stories about her childhood or dreams about our future together. No more lazy afternoon conversations about what we'd name our guest house or what kind of rooms we'd build. It was all logistics now, all urgent problems that needed immediate money solutions. Is everything okay with us? I asked her one night after she'd spent 20 minutes on the phone speaking in urgent Thai on our front porch. What you mean? I mean, are we okay, you and me? She looked at me like I'd asked her to solve calculus. Of course we okay. Why you ask silly question? Just feels different lately, like you're stressed about something you can't tell me. Only stress is getting our business started. Once everything finalized, we be happy again. Just you and me and our beautiful guest house. She kissed my cheek. You worry too much, Maurice. Everything fine. But everything wasn't fine. I could feel it in the way she held her body when we slept, turned away from me like she was protecting herself from something. I could hear it in the way she answered her phone, always stepping outside now, always speaking in whispers. One night I woke up at 2 a.m. and she wasn't in bed. I found her on the front porch, crying quietly while typing messages on her phone. Mayuri, what's wrong? She wiped her eyes quickly and shoved the phone into her pocket. Nothing wrong. Just sad about Papa. Sometimes I miss him very much. Want to talk about it? No talk, just need sleep. She brushed past me into the house. We talk tomorrow. But we didn't talk tomorrow. Or the next day. We went through the motions of being a couple, shared meals, polite conversation, obligatory kisses, but it felt like we were both reading from a script neither of us believed in anymore. I started lying awake at night, listening to her breathe, wondering when we'd stopped being partners and started being strangers who happened to share a bed. Wondering if she'd ever really loved me, or if I'd just been convenient. Wondering what the hell I'd gotten myself into, and whether it was too late to find a way out. The answer to that last question was yes. It was already too late. But I wouldn't figure that out until it was too late to matter. I found out the truth on a Thursday morning that started like any other Thursday morning except Mayuri wasn't there when I woke up. Her side of the bed was cold, her clothes were gone from the closet, and there was a note on the kitchen table written in her careful English handwriting. Maurice, have to go take care of family emergency. Back soon. Don't worry about me. Love. M. Don't worry about me. After 6 months of transferring money for land deals and legal fees and family emergencies, she leaves me a note that says don't worry about me like I'm some casual roommate instead of the man who's been funding her entire life. I spent the morning pacing around our empty bungalow, trying her phone, getting sent straight to voicemail. By noon, I couldn't stand it anymore. I needed to see this land we'd supposedly bought. Needed to see something concrete that proved all those transfers had been building towards something real. I took a taxi to the address Mayuri had given me months ago. It was about 20 minutes inland from Rawai, in an area I'd never visited. The driver had to ask for directions twice, which should have been my first warning sign. If this land was going to be our guest house location, shouldn't it be easier to find? The address led to a small house with a well-maintained garden and a new Toyota pickup truck in the driveway. I could hear children playing in the backyard and smell something delicious cooking inside. This looked like a family home, not undeveloped land for a guest house. I knocked on the door and waited. After a minute, a Thai man in his 30s answered. He was wearing a wedding ring and had the comfortable look of someone who was exactly where he belonged. "Hello, I'm looking for Mayuri," I said. His face went through a series of expressions I couldn't read. Surprise, recognition, something that might have been pity. "You are Maurice?" "Yeah." "You must be the cousin." He invited me inside with the kind of politeness that felt like an obligation. The house was nicer than our bungalow, much nicer. It had new furniture, a large television, children's toys scattered around, and family photos covering an entire wall. In several of the photos I could see Mayuri. She was smiling, laughing, holding babies, looking completely at home. "Please sit," the man said, gesturing toward a couch that looked like it cost more than I'd spent on rent in 6 months. "I get you water." While he was in the kitchen, I studied the photos more closely. There was Mayuri at what looked like a wedding celebration, wearing traditional Thai dress, standing next to this same man. Both of them beaming at the camera like they just won the lottery. Both of them wearing matching gold wedding bands. My chest went tight. My hands started shaking. The man returned with a glass of water and sat across from me. He looked uncomfortable, like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. "The land we bought together," I said. "For the guest house. Is it nearby?" He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "No land for guest house." "What do you mean, no land?" "Mayuri, she my wife. We married 3 years. Have 2 children." He pointed toward the backyard where I could still hear kids laughing. "She tell me about American man who want to help her. She say you very kind. Very generous." The water glass slipped out of my hands and shattered on the tile floor. Neither of us moved to clean it up. "She's your wife?" "Yes, sorry. I think maybe you not know. The money. All the money I transferred. For the land, for the lawyers, for her brother's legal troubles. For our house. For our children." He wasn't cruel about it, just matter of fact. "We use money to pay for house renovation, children's school, my mother medical bills." Mayuri very good at finding men who want to help Thai woman. I felt like I was going to throw up. "How many men? You not first. Not last, I think." That evening, back in our bungalow that was now just my bungalow, I sent Mayuri a message through line. "I met your husband today." She responded 20 minutes later. "I didn't lie. You gave." I said, "Forever, not only you." Then she blocked me. I sat on our front porch, my front porch, and tried to add up all the money I'd transferred over the past 6 months. 40,000 here, 60,000 there, plus the big chunk for the non-existent land purchase. It came to somewhere around 900,000 baht, about 27,000 American dollars. Almost everything I'd brought to Thailand to start my new life. For a lie wrapped in smiles and promises of forever. I didn't lie. You gave. I said forever, not only you. She was right. She hadn't lied, not technically. I had given her the money voluntarily. She had said forever, just not the kind of forever I'd imagined. Not the exclusive, monogamous, building a future together forever I'd been dreaming about. Her forever was more like a rotation, a schedule. Forevers with multiple men who all thought they were special, who all thought they were different from the others. I'd been so sure I was rescuing her from loneliness and financial struggle. Turns out she'd been rescuing me from money I was stupid enough to give away. The silence in the bungalow was deafening. Without Mayuri's chatter, her cooking sounds, her phone constantly buzzing with messages I thought were about our future, the place felt like a museum of my own stupidity. Her shrine was still set up on the dresser. Her coffee cup was still in the sink. Her flip-flops were still by the front door, like she might walk back in any minute with some perfectly reasonable explanation for why her husband thought they'd been married for 3 years. I couldn't eat. Food tasted like cardboard and shame. I tried to sleep but kept hearing her voice in my head saying forever in that breathy way that used to make me feel like the luckiest man alive. Now it sounded like a punchline to a joke I'd never understood. The worst part was facing my neighbors. Phuket's expat community is small, especially around Rawai. Everyone knows everyone else's business. Within 2 days, I could feel them watching me when I walked to the 7-Eleven. Conversations would stop when I approached. I'd catch people whispering behind their hands, and I knew exactly what they were saying. Poor Maurice. Got taken for everything by that market girl. Should have seen it coming from a mile away. These old guys never learn. Mrs. Patterson, the British woman who lived 3 houses down, tried to be kind about it. Maurice, dear, are you all right? We haven't seen Mayuri around lately. She's visiting family, I lied, because admitting the truth out loud would have made it real in a way I wasn't ready to handle. Oh, lovely. Give her my regards when she returns. When she returns. Like there was still some possibility that this was all a misunderstanding. That Mayuri would come back with a perfectly logical explanation for why she had a husband and children and a house that my money had helped renovate. I stopped going to the market where we'd met. Couldn't handle seeing her empty fruit stall or having other vendors ask where my beautiful girlfriend had gone. I started shopping at the big grocery store near Chalong, where nobody knew me or my story, where I could buy instant noodles and Chang beer without having to explain why I looked like someone had died. The mirror in the bathroom became my enemy. Every morning, I'd see this pathetic 55-year-old man who'd been so desperate for love that he'd handed over $27,000 to a woman who was running the same scam on God knows how. Many other lonely foreigners. The worst part wasn't that she'd taken my money. The worst part was that I'd wanted to give it to her. I'd wanted to be her hero so badly that I'd ignored every red flag, every inconsistency, every moment when my gut told me something wasn't right. You gave. That's what she'd said. Not you were tricked, or you were lied to, or you were manipulated. You gave. Because I had given. Willingly, eagerly. Like a man throwing money at a stripper, and then being surprised when she doesn't actually love him. I started drinking more than I should have. Beer with breakfast, whiskey with lunch, whatever would make the shame quiet down long enough for me to get through another day of being the fool who thought he'd found love in a Thai market. The alcohol helped with the embarrassment but made the loneliness worse. Made me remember how good it felt to have someone cook for me, to have warm arms around me at night, to have someone who pretended to care about my stories and my dreams. Even knowing it was all fake, I missed it. That's what really broke me. Not the money, not even the betrayal, but the fact that I missed being lied to because being lied to had felt better than being ignored. I'd rather have fake love than no love at all. 2 weeks after learning about her husband, I found myself looking through her leftover things in our closet. A few cheap dresses, some costume jewelry, a notebook written in Thai that I couldn't read. I held that notebook for an hour, wondering if it contained lists of men like me, or genuine thoughts about her real life, or just shopping lists and phone numbers. I threw it away without trying to translate it. Some truths are too heavy to carry. The hardest part was admitting to myself that I'd seen the warning signs all along, the way she'd never wanted me to meet her family or friends, the way our conversations had become increasingly transactional, the way she'd started treating me like a business partner instead of a lover. I'd noticed all of it and chosen to believe her explanations because believing her explanations allowed me to keep living in a fantasy where I mattered to someone. I'd been so afraid of being alone again that I'd paid $27,000 for the privilege of being lied to. And the most humiliating part was that if she walked through that door right now with another sob story and another emergency, I wasn't entirely sure I wouldn't help her again. That's what shame looks like. It looks like a man sitting alone in a bungalow in Thailand, surrounded by the evidence of his own desperation, wondering if fake love is still better than no love at all. Steve found me at the beach bar near Nai Harn on a Friday afternoon, about 3 weeks after Mayuri disappeared from my life. I was on my 4th Chang beer and working up the courage for a 5th when this weathered Canadian guy in his 60s slid onto the stool next to me. "You're Maurice, right? The guy who was with Mayuri from the fruit market?" I wanted to deny it, pretend I was just another tourist drowning my problems in cheap Thai beer, but there was something in his voice that sounded like recognition instead of judgment. "Yeah, that's me. Steve Morrison. From Toronto. Mind if I buy you a drink? I can buy my own drinks. I'm sure you can, but I think we should talk." He ordered 2 more beers and pulled out his phone. Without saying anything, he showed me a photo. It was Mayuri, arms wrapped around another foreigner, both of them grinning at the camera in front of this same beach bar. The guy looked like he was in his 50s, maybe German or Australian based on his sunburned complexion and tourist clothes. When was this taken? Last week. Steve took a long sip of his beer. "She's already moved on, Maurice, like you never existed." The photo hit me harder than it should have. Seeing her smile, that same radiant smile she'd given me when we got married at the temple, now directed at some other poor bastard who probably thought he was special, who probably thought he was different from all the other foreigners who came to Thailand looking for love. She did the same thing to me, Steve continued. 2 years ago, market girl, needed help with family problems, had big dreams about starting a business. Sound familiar? How much? About 800,000 baht. Plus I paid for her sick mother's surgery and her brother's motorcycle accident. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Turned out the sick mother was fine and the brother didn't exist. Just like your land deal probably didn't exist. It didn't, I figured. She's got maybe 4 or 5 guys in rotation at any given time. All of us thinking we're her one true love. All of us funding her real life with her real husband and her real kids. We sat in silence for a while, watching the waves crash against the rocks below the bar. 2 middle-aged foreigners who'd been stupid enough to believe that a beautiful Thai woman half our age had fallen in love with our personalities. You want to know the worst part? Steve asked. What? I saw her with another guy about 6 months after she disappeared from my life. At the Jungsilon Mall in Patong. She was holding hands with some British guy, laughing at something he said, looking exactly as happy as she'd looked with me. When she saw me watching, she didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed, just waved like we were old friends who'd lost touch. What did you do? Nothing. What could I do? Walk over and tell the guy he was being scammed? He wouldn't have believed me. When you're in the middle of it, when she's looking at you like you're her savior, logic doesn't matter. All that matters is the feeling. He was right. If someone had tried to warn me about Mayuri 3 months ago, I would have thought they were jealous or bitter or just couldn't understand what we had together. I would have defended her, made excuses, found reasons why our situation was different. How many guys you think are funding her right now? Hard to say. But based on her lifestyle, probably 3 or 4 active ones, plus a few backup guys. She keeps warm for when someone like you or me figures it out and cuts off the money supply. Steve showed me more photos on his phone. Mayuri, with different men at different restaurants, different beaches, different bars, all of them looking proud and happy and completely unaware that they were part of a rotation. All of them probably telling themselves the same story I'd told myself, that they were special, that they were different, that they'd found real love in an unexpected place. The thing that gets me, I said, is how good she was at it. Like, she really seemed to care. The way she listened, the way she remembered little things I told her, the way she made me feel important. That's her job, Maurice. She's a professional. Probably been doing this since she was a teenager. She knows exactly what lonely foreign men want to hear, exactly how to make us feel like heroes instead of marks. Jesus, the husband's in on it too, obviously. They probably have a system. She brings home the money. He plays the concerned family member when guys like us start asking too many questions. Classic long con. We ordered another round and Steve told me more stories. About the other guys he'd met who'd been through the Mayuri experience. About the patterns, the scripts, the carefully orchestrated emotional manipulation that turned lonely foreigners into walking ATMs. So what do we do about it? Nothing, Steve said. What can we do? Report her to the police? For what? Taking money we gave her voluntarily? She never stole anything. She never threatened us. She just let us believe what we wanted to believe and took our money when we offered it. Warn other guys? You try warning a guy who's in love with a beautiful woman who tells him he's special. See how that goes. As the sun started setting over the Andaman Sea, Steve finished his beer and stood up to leave. One more thing, Maurice. You're probably going to want to go looking for her. Try to get closure or explanations, or maybe even try to win her back. Don't. She's already forgotten you exist. The best thing you can do is accept that you paid $27,000 for a very expensive education about human nature. What kind of education? That some people see kindness as weakness, that some people view loneliness as opportunity, and that sometimes the person who makes you feel most alive is the person who's slowly killing you. He left me sitting at the bar with an empty beer bottle and a phone full of photos that proved my love story had been nothing more than business as usual. Mayuri had already moved on to the next lonely foreigner with a retirement account and a desperate need to feel important. She probably didn't even remember my name. 6 months later, I'm still in Phuket. Not because I love it here, but because going back to Ohio would feel like admitting complete defeat. At least here, I can pretend I'm living an adventure instead of hiding from my mistakes. I walk the beach every morning now. Alone. The same stretch of sand where Mayuri and I used to share coconuts and plan our imaginary guest house. The irony isn't lost on me that I finally found peace in Thailand, just not the way I'd expected. Not with a beautiful woman massaging my feet and calling me special. Just me, the ocean, and the hard-earned knowledge that some lessons cost more than you want to pay. My routine is simple now. Coffee at sunrise, walking until the heat becomes unbearable, lunch at the same quiet restaurant where nobody knows my story, reading on my porch until sunset, early to bed with a clear conscience, and an empty bank account. It's not the romantic tropical retirement I'd imagined, but it's honest. I don't trust smiles anymore. When vendors at the market are extra friendly, when restaurant servers laugh a little too hard at my terrible Thai pronunciation, when someone starts asking personal questions about my life in America, I politely disengage. Not because I think everyone's running a scam, but because I've learned the difference between genuine kindness and professional charm. The hardest part isn't the money. $27,000 is a lot, but it's not life-destroying. The hardest part is accepting that I wanted to be fooled. That I was so hungry for love and importance that I ignored obvious red flags and reasonable doubt. That I chose fantasy over reality because fantasy felt better. I keep a journal now. Nothing dramatic, just daily observations about weather and food and the small interactions that make up expat life. Writing helps me stay honest with myself. Helps me remember that being alone isn't the same as being lonely, and that loneliness isn't an emergency that requires immediate treatment by the first person who pays attention to you. Sometimes I see other foreign men my age walking around Phuket with young Thai women who gaze at them adoringly and laugh at everything they say. I don't try to warn them. Steve was right about that. When you're living inside the fantasy, outside voices just sound like jealousy or bitterness. You have to wake up on your own. But I do watch them sometimes, these men who look like I used to look. Proud and protective, and completely convinced that they've found something special. Maybe some of them have, maybe some of those relationships are genuine, but the ones that aren't, the ones that are just business dressed up as romance, those guys will figure it out eventually. Usually when the money runs out or the paperwork doesn't materialize, or they accidentally meet the husband. Last week I got an email from my daughter Sarah. She'd seen some Facebook posts about my Thai adventure and wanted to know if I was happy. I thought about that question for a long time before responding. Am I happy? Not in the way I'd hoped to be when I bought that one-way ticket. I'm not waking up next to someone who calls me special. I'm not building a guest house or planning a future with a woman who makes me feel like a hero. I'm not living the romantic retirement fantasy that brought me here. But I'm not miserable either. I'm awake, clear-headed, free from the exhausting work of maintaining an illusion that required me to ignore my own instincts. Free from the anxiety of wondering why my beautiful girlfriend was becoming distant and secretive. Free from the humiliation of being managed and manipulated by someone who saw my loneliness as a business opportunity. I wrote back to Sarah, I'm learning to be okay with myself. That's not the same as happy, but it's more sustainable. Maybe peace was never about finding the right place or the right person. Maybe peace is about being comfortable with who you are when nobody's watching. About not needing external validation to feel worthwhile. About accepting that some mistakes teach you more than any success ever could. I still live in the same bungalow where Mayuri and I played house for 6 months. But now it feels like mine instead of ours. I've taken down her shrine and replaced it with books. I've learned to cook simple Thai dishes that don't remind me of her hands moving gracefully around my kitchen. I've made the space honest. Every few months, someone will mention seeing Mayuri around town with a new foreign boyfriend. Usually someone describes her as that sweet market girl who's so good to her American husband, or the woman who's saving money to start a guest house with her European partner. I just nod and change the subject. Her story continues, just with different leading men. I don't hate her. That's the surprising thing. I'm not angry or bitter or plotting revenge. She did what she needed to do to take care of her family, and I did what I needed to do to feel important. We both got something out of the arrangement, even if what I got turned out to be temporary and expensive. These days, when I sit on my porch watching the sunset paint the sky purple and gold, I don't feel cheated. I feel educated. $27,000 for a masterclass in human nature, emotional manipulation, and the dangerous intersection of loneliness and hope. Expensive tuition, but I learned the material thoroughly. The ocean doesn't care about my story. The palm trees don't judge my mistakes. The morning coffee tastes the same whether you're drinking it alone or with someone who's pretending to love you. And maybe that's enough. Maybe being okay with your own company is the only sustainable form of happiness anyway. I'm 56 now, living alone in Phuket, with a smaller bank account and a more realistic understanding of how the world works. Not the romantic ending I'd planned, but an honest one. And after 6 months of living inside someone else's carefully constructed fantasy, honesty feels like luxury I can finally afford.